Can you hear me? Okay. So that was just to get your attention. It's a very scientific way. If you look at behavioral science to get people's attention. So, you know, everyone likes dogs and babies. At least I think. So what we do is we do behavioral data science, and that's probably something you never heard of. And the reason is because we kind of invented that word. So we prevent bad and costly decisions using behavioral data science. And why I hope this is interesting to you is because as a data scientist, you're always in some way dealing with decisions, with human decisions. So I hope it gives you another perspective of how to incorporate that into what you do on a day-to-day basis. And they say that data science people have a very broad focus and very broad interests, so that shouldn't be a problem. So basically, what it comes down to is what we do is we have like two postulates. The first is that as a company, you have two kind of people who make decisions. You have your target audience, you have your employees. They don't always make the optimal decisions, which can be quite costly. Also, data can improve that decision-making process. So now we will look at how do we do that as a company? How do we help other companies improve the decision-making of their targets and their employees? So when you tell people your decision-making isn't perfect, they say, well, nobody's perfect, which is kind of stupid in my opinion. Well, I placed those arrows kind of stupid as well. Anyway. So if your employees don't make the right decisions, your retention will go down in HR. In finance, you have a less return on investment because of cognitive biases. So if your target audience don't make the right decisions, your donations will go down on your website because the resistance of people will be too high to donate. You have a much customer churn in marketing. So a bad human decision is quite costly, and it can be influenced more than you think at first sight. So how do people make decisions? We all here, of course, are perfectly rational, so we all make perfect decisions. So a perfect rational human being would make decisions the following way. Benefits minus cost is the value of an option. Then you compare all the options, and then the option with the biggest value wins. So that will be your ideal life, and you'd be a millionaire in a couple of weeks. You always made those decisions. Unfortunately, we're not all that kind of geniuses. Actually, 95% of the time we're kind of morons. In the sense that 95% of the time we use mental shortcuts. So we actually have some kind of automatic thinking mode in the sense that you can process everything, all the information going on you all the time. So you can process everything. So you need those kind of rules of thumb to make your decisions. And they're not always correct. So for instance, if you see that your neighbor bought a car, you will probably overvalue the car and buy it yourself, whilst you have no reason to assume it's better than another car. So also another interesting thing in sales, for instance, is if I say to you, if you are a client of Brainvolve, you get benefit A, B, and C. Or if I say to you, if you don't become a client of us, you lose the opportunity to gain A, B, and C. I have double the chance that you will agree with me because I framed it in terms of loss. And actually, someone won the Nobel Prize. It's quite interesting. It's called prospect theory on that. So you can check it out. You see that the curve is way more steep with the losses than with the gains. So that was quite some theory. I don't know for whom was that new. Raise of hands if that was new. Okay. So how can data help you? Well, actually, data can do two things. It can combat these assumptions. So for instance, if you're an HR manager, then it's important that you combat all the underlying assumptions in the recruitment process. So a lot of HR managers say, we need an extrovert salesman. But then if you ask them, how do you know? Then there's like a 10-second awkward silence because they never check their facts if an extrovert salesman is indeed a predictor for a good employee. So you can better the decision process by using data, but also these mental shortcuts can sometimes be to your advantage. For instance, if you're a non-profit and you have data of all the donations, and you know that the average donation in Belgium is, for instance, 20 euros, but you see, oh, this is someone on my website, he's from Brussels, and oh, look, the average donation in Brussels is 40 euros. Then you would be stupid not to mention it, because people always follow the example of similar other people, so you have like a 50% chance that they will donate 40 instead of 20, which gains you quite a lot of money with just one more sentence on your website. So that's basically where we are. I think you kind of get this. So we do consulting on this, and we're also building a tool on recruitment. And it was kind of funny because someone said yesterday to me, so you like sell common sense because you do consulting. I didn't really like that. Also because I don't like most consulting companies, like the big IT companies you all know, with 10 identical twins, all having the same ideas, connecting the same dots in their heads. So we kind of don't want to get into that way of consulting. So we are a really remote team with different backgrounds. We connect with professors from universities for every problem we tackle. So that we're just making sure we don't gamble, and we don't gamble with people's money because they don't like that, trust me. So that was the recruitment thing I told you about. Is anyone an HR manager here? Okay, they're horrible people sometimes. They think their intuition is some kind of magical power. So you can't say anything about data, or they're or defensive. So it's really hard to convince them of the power of data. And people analytics is quite a growing field, but there's still a lot of work because intuition is how it's been done for so many years in HR. And actually, we're still looking for companies that want to test our tools just for better predictive power of for candidate assessment. So if you know anyone of a company that doesn't want to lose that advantage, loss aversion, then let me know, please. So these are some examples. I won't go over them all, but this can actually also be used for the good. For instance, in insurance business, because if you have real life data, for instance, if someone is sitting in his car and how he compares to other people's behavior, if you know how a person thinks, you can use his data to make him drive safer, just by, for instance, saying there have been tests around this, just by saying that 90% of the people drive slower than that person, they will actually drive slower because you said that. So you can, not only insurance company can use it, but you can actually save a life as an insurance company by triggering the person. That was it. So you can ask me questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and there is time for questions.
In HR, for instance, isn't there an issue of data capture?
Excuse me?
In HR, the example you gave, isn't there a problem of data capture?
Yeah, that there's not a lot of data available. Yeah, it's indeed a problem because only the big 500 companies have the data, and they have the data from very big tools. So those big tools already have a lot of, let's say, predictive things. So you have to find a unique value. So it is indeed quite a challenge. And mostly HR data is not clean, and you ask quite a big commitment to first clean their data. So it's really question of finding the right company. Any other questions?
One thing you put the difference between trusting the data and trusting your gut, your intuition, and actually it seems most innovation by humans was done because of this intuition, that they went against certainty and they just had a feeling for something. They went, they dug for it, and discovered something great. Exactly, what's your take on this? And how, for example, do you explain for this kind of thing, missing data or dirty data? And how do you manage both things, the intuition and the data, to drive better decisions?
Well, I think you can you can actually visually draw into intuition or innovation, because innovation is like, always wanted to do this, was also always there at school. Innovation is always like connecting dots. So these are my dots, these are your dots, and then you kind of connect them, and here is where the innovation is. So it kind of intervenes a little bit, because you can always, like, if you would have all the data of a person in a database, you could like visually show which connection made the innovative idea. And these could also be people, so not just like individual brains, but like just in a company, where does innovation come from? There's some great studies on social network analysis, how innovative ideas are generated, and data can really accelerate that. But it is always it's always important to have intuition, because if you have a lot of time and information, you shouldn't use intuition. But sometimes you have to use it because you just have to make a quick decision, or sometimes just because you have a hunch, but you need to check your hunch. I don't know if that answers your question.
A bit, but the idea is more like, where do you put the trust into the data? Well, one thing, for example, is you could say that you gain knowledge by questioning the data and never trusting the data, always looking for something more. So I mean, how do you recommend using the data? How do you recommend using both the data and the intuition to make the decisions? Do you recommend following the data blindly, or?
Surely not blindly, and also because people don't want data to make the decision; they want data to empower them to make the better decision. So that's you really have to frame it the right way, and I think still people in the end, people still have to make the decision. I think that's the best way, because data can't account to every factor, but it can certainly help you a lot.
Hey, I hope you liked this presentation. This presentation was held in the Brussels Data Science Community Meetup. If you want to know more of when these meetups are taking place, just check the link below. Bye-bye.